Well, all of a sudden my recording software just stopped working. So anyways, PIXLR, we go in there and we can open up an image. And when that image is open, now this happens to be a PNG, it's got a transparent background, I can see that. And I can do different things. I can actually come in here and I can grab my pencil tool and I can actually just draw stuff on here. I can click my paint tool and I can paint it. If I wanted to, I could zoom in and I could actually paint this tongue pink again and then zoom back out, and now it's got a pink tongue. Anyways, so I highly suggest Pixlr for modifying pictures. I've done a lot of great things with this, a lot of fun things with this. For one, I've put my head on a lot of different people's bodies and had a lot of fun with it, or put my face on other people's faces and just really had a lot of really neat fun with this. Really great tool. Again, very comparable to Adobe Photoshop Elements, which is kind of the layman's person for using pictures. A great thing about this as well is we can actually let me bring in a picture, an actual photo. So here is a nighttime picture once it comes up. Okay, so here's a nighttime picture. It's kind of hard to see. So what you can do is actually come in here to adjustments and we can click on brightness contrast and we can brighten this picture up. Okay, just bring the brightness up and the contrast up at the same time, so they basically kind of give us the best of both worlds. When I click OK, now that is a lot easier to see. If I would now watch what happens when I click Edit Undo, watch the picture, see how much darker that got. So that's kind of neat. So there's a lot of probably pictures you've taken that are pretty dark. You can actually go in and lighten those things up with this great tool called Pixlr. Okay, so now let's talk about adding an image to our website, and we do that through the IMG tag. Now there's some different parts to it. The main part that you have to have is the SRC. That's bring in this picture. So you don't have that, you don't have a picture. Another one is the alt tag. Now the alt tag is required. Well, let me say this. The W3C folks have basically said this needs to always be included, and I'll tell you why here in just a sec. The rest of them are more optional. Width and height, if you don't use those, the picture's going to come in full blown. So if you want that thing to fit your screen more, you probably use width and height. Title tag is a neat one, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, how that's utilized. Okay, so if we take a look at, so here's a website, and here I've got an IMG src equals daisy.jpg. Now, since it has no path on there, it's expecting that picture to be in the same place this HTML tag is, or this HTML file is, and it is. We've got a width of 100 and a height of 100. We've got an alt as daisy image. We've got a title of the wild daisy, and its style right now is float left, and it has a margin of 20 pixels, margin right of 20 pixels. Okay. So when we look at this guy on the screen, this is what it looks like. Now, the title tag, again, optional, but it's nice to have, is if I place my pointer on that picture, the title will then appear. Okay, and it says the wild daisy. That's kind of cool. The alt tag, though, let's say we were I think I got an example here in the book. Yeah. So here we have a page where we just see the contents and not the pictures. And notice it's got this barnesandnoble.com, send 25%. Those are all the alt tags. So if you ever have a situation where a page doesn't come up and you want to know what picture that is, the alt tag will say, this is what I'm expecting to be here. So this alt tag is basically saying, this is the actual picture that should be here. The title tag won't show. I don't believe it will. You might be able to hover over it and see that, but again, the title tag is more of a user-friendly tag. The alt tag is more of a web developer tag. It lets a web developer know what picture should be there. Okay. So the example they have down here is the IMG source balloons.sm.jpg, and underscore SM is usually a shortcut for small. You'll see that on some pictures. You'll see underscore SM, underscore MD, and underscore LG, and maybe even underscore XL. So because we might want to have different sizes of pictures of that one picture. So when we're doing any type of web development, if I see a picture called balloons underscore SM, I know it's a small picture. Maybe I don't want that on this particular page. I want a little bigger picture. I might have 4 different pictures of that same balloon, but they're all different sizes. Okay, so I want it to fit on my screen where I want it to fit. I don't want to take up too much room, so I'm making it a width of 200 and a height of 267, and it's got an alt of hot air balloon image. The title is Balloons at the Great Falls Festival in Lewiston, Maine. So as you can see, that title tag is a lot more user friendly, so when somebody hovers over that tag, they know what picture they are basically looking at. So when we go to the next page, this is basically what it looks like. When you hover over that picture, it says Balloons at the Great Falls Festival in Lewiston, Maine. We've got our margins and everything basically right there. Notice that it's basically, what did it say, 200 tall by 267 high by 200 wide. So we basically made that specific because if we would let it come in its native state, it may have taken up too much space, and we didn't want it too small, so we wanted it the right size, so we basically specify the height and width. So it says specifying the image height and width. Now, I'm going to say this. Well, it says you should set the height, the width and the height to preserve the look and feel of your layout, whether the images are displayed or not. Figure 8.7, the width and height have been omitted. Notice that if the browser does not know the width and height, the text wrapping appearance of the page changed dramatically and the image is not displayed. So since we didn't use the width of the height, it basically couldn't reserve the image size, and so it just basically didn't display it. So now I will say this, you can get away with just using width, and it will keep the picture in contrast by just the width. So, which is kind of nice. I don't think this book talks about that, but I do it all the time, is I just pretty much rely on the width that I want. The height will basically follow. Okay. So now we have, so notice up here it wasn't reserved, so it basically just didn't leave room for it. Down here it was reserved, so it reserved 200 by 267. Now what happens here is we're pointing to a file that it can't get to. Maybe we're pointing to this balloons._sm, but maybe it's called balloon _sm.jpg. We called it balloon, so it can't find it. It still reserved the space, but it couldn't display it because it couldn't find that file. Up here, since we didn't use a width or a height, it couldn't find the file, so it just left that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So here we are, original size of 200 by 267, 100 by 134, 100 by 200. Now what really happens is you notice this guy gets a little stretched out, and that's because we don't know what height to use. Again, that's where I just omit height and let it basically utilize the width itself. And this is basically what it would look like in the in the website code. Okay, so when we start thinking about graphics for our website, we really have to start thinking about chapter 6 and chapter 7. We got our boxes. We got our boxes inside of our page layout. Now we need to add graphics. So graphics are going to kind of be boxes themselves. And where are they going to fit? How are they going to fit? And how do we make it flow so it looks really, really nice? So we can control our image properties with our CSS, which is really, really nice. So the one thing, let's say we make a picture as a hyperlink. So I actually have it attached to an href tag, an anchor href tag. Well, when a picture is a link, it now has a border around it. Well, maybe we don't want that picture to have a border. So to do that, we can kind of come in here and we can actually put style equals border none. So there is our CSS code to say I don't want any border of any kind. I say border none. Even if it's a link, it will not have a border. So this is kind of what it shows like. So if this was a border, it would have a blue border around it. But if I use border none in my CSS, it will basically look like the bottom one. So now we're going to have text next to our balloon. So if we look at this bottom one, it basically is the default. So if I had a picture and then type some text next to it, that's the default. But if I made the picture have a property of vertical align middle, the text is going to appear smack dab in the middle of that guy. If I made it vertical align top, the text will be in line with the top of that picture. So to do this, we have to use the float. Okay, so to float an image, we can do left, right, or none. Applies to all elements except the positioned elements. So I could say img.left, float left, img.right, float right. Now, since that is a dot, now here's I don't know if we've talked about this before, but this is a class item, because remember, classes have a period, IDs have a pound. Since I'm saying id.left, that says this can only be used in an img tag, but you have to use a class in order to use it. So if I'm going to use the left, I would have to say img, here's my source, class equal left, and it's going to apply this top style to it, which is float. That's pretty cool. So dot left. Could I use this dot left anywhere else? No, I can only use it on an image tag. We could do that on just most everything as well, so it's kind of cool. So here we have our float left, and this picture down at the bottom is a float right. So you can see adding pictures like this to our website really adds some depth to it, and this really makes it look nice. But notice these pictures have some nice white space around them. They look pretty good. We have to put that in there, folks, because if we don't, it's going to look like that, which looks like heck, right? So to do that, we put in a margin left, margin top, margin bottom, and notice I didn't put any margin left on there. Well, I did put a margin left. Oh, probably because the text has a margin left as well. So since this paragraph has a margin left, you're going to need to add the same exact margin left for the image as well. But the margin right here is basically the key. Is you notice the bottom picture has a bottom margin right. This one does not. So make sure that we coincide with that. Again, margin left is 20 pixels. That's only because the P tag probably has a margin left of 20 pixels. So we need to keep it in, because notice we want this edge of the text to be in line with our picture. If we don't, it really looks bad. You know, think of looking at a newspaper where the picture just was offset from the text. It just wouldn't look right. So, talked about images. Let's talk about color now. How can we add color to things and basically make it look good? Well, again, we talked about 8 bits. We've talked about 24 bits. There's actually millions of colors. There's all kinds of different coloring we can do. There's 8-bit, 16-bit, 24-bit, 32-bit, all kinds of different coloring in there. So we need a color depth. Again, I talked about a blue sky. It goes from a dark blue to a light blue. There are literally thousands of different shades of blue in there. If we used a GIF to try to show that picture, this is what it would look like, because we only have so many colors, and so we only have so many colors of blue, and this is basically what it turned out. This is called dithering. Dithering is that gradient from within the same color going from dark to light. That's called dithering. With only 8-bit, we don't have that many colors. Remember, our crayon box is pretty small. So do we want to use photographs for as GIFs? Probably not. Dithering, on the other hand, JPEGs, on the other hand, literally have thousands and thousands of colors, so we can get that nice gradient from a dark blue to a light blue. I'm looking at this picture and I can see some slight, so we might not have, you know, again, we have to have a pretty big picture, one that has a lot of detail in it, so it's going to be multi-megabytes big. So, but again, what's that take to download and look at a computer? Not that well. So again, they call this banding. Yeah, that's not good. It looks terrible. One way to control the dithering is to use a non-dithering colors. This 216 non-dithering colors that are shared by PCs and Macintosh are called the web palettes or browser-safe colors. Non-dithering palette only applies to a GIFs or 8-bit PNG, not the 24-bit JPEGs. Most web-capable graphic programs include the web palette colors. So you should be okay using the JPEG with thousands of colors. Now, let's talk about color schemes. You've probably been to a website before where it was just ugly, ugly, ugly colors. And you're looking at this thing going, oh my God, why would you put yellow on orange? It's just terrible. Well, that's something we really have to think about when we're designing our website. So if we take a look at the basic color wheel, okay, I shouldn't say basic, but here we look at the color wheel, and we have our basic colors of red, blue, green, okay, and then we've got all the colors that go in between. I think this is the colors of the rainbow. Well, so the primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. Red, yellow, blue, sorry, and arranged in opposite corners of each other. So red, yellow, and blue. Okay, so here's red, here's blue, here's yellow. So here's our primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. Our secondary colors are green, purple, and orange. And what that is if we take an equal amount of red and an equal amount of yellow, we get orange. If we take an equal amount of yellow and an equal amount of blue, we get green. If we take an equal amount of blue and equal amount of red, we get purple. Those are the secondary colors. Then if we take this red and this orange and combine together, we get this in-between color. If we take purple and red, we get that color. So anyways, we can start seeing those in-between colors as well. So The color wheel is often divided into what's called warm and cool colors. The warm colors include colors that are normally seen in daylight or sunsets, reds through yellows and browns and tans. The cool colors are associated with the color of water and clouds and overcast days, and include blue through the greens and the violets. Although these perceptions are culturally independent, they provide a broad characterizations of the color scheme. So then we can take a color and we can make it darker or lighter, or we can make it a different tint. Okay, so in color theory, this is a pure color is called a hue. So the color itself is a hue. A color without tint or shade, it has no tint or shade. If a color is made lighter by adding white, the result is called tint. If black is added, we call it shade. So if we take a color and add white, that makes it lighter, that's tinted. If I take black and add it to a color, it makes it darker, which makes it shaded. Okay? So if we look at this top one, we've taken green and we added a little white, a little more, a little more, a little more, and a lot, and now that is tinted. If we took green and added black to it, a little more, a little more, a little more, it basically keeps getting darker, and that is called shading. Now, when we're picking colors for our site, we do have what are called complementary colors. Okay, and what we mean by that is if we take a look at this color wheel, the color opposite is the wheel that colors complementary color. So let's say I had a background of red. If I took orange lettering and put it on there, it would look terrible. Same way if I had a green background and I put this light green or this yellow on there, it would look terrible. But if I had a red background and I had green text or vice versa, it would look good because those are complementary colors. So that's how we basically do our website. Now, analog colors are those colors that, again, are next to each other. Okay, these guys basically kind of go again, in line with each other. One color is usually a dominant, while the other ones are used to enhance it. Be careful using those colors together. Make sure they are complementary to each other and not, like I said, you know, a yellow text on a green background is just atrocious. Monochromatic color schemes are basically when we use tints and shading to our colors. That basically kind of makes a website looks nice. So these are monochromatic colors for the color blue. Okay, so we go from a blue all the way down to a really dark blue. Okay, I wanted to show you some different websites, some different web coloring. So here are some websites that have complementary colors in them. Okay, they might not look all that well, but I mean you might not think but they are complementary colors to each other. They contrast well. Okay. Here we've got some oranges, and here we've got yellows and grays. We've got greens and blues, purples and dark colors. So they work. Some of these I don't think I would choose that color scheme, but they do work. They do basically kind of get the point across here. So so as you can see, really picking out a nice color scheme for your site is really kind of a basic building block for your website. So again, they talk about using color wisely. Again, another thing that this book doesn't get into, but the next class does, is you really have to start thinking about folks who are colorblind. How do they see things? Let's take a look at an example of a of what that would look like. I'm going to go to the textbook for the next class here, and I'm going to go to chapter 4. Okay, so if you take a look at these two pictures, okay, the picture on the left is a normal picture of how we would see it. The picture on the right is how a person who is colorblind would see that picture. Notice that the strawberries look black. That's how they see strawberries. So when we are picking color design, this is something that I want you to keep in the back of your mind, because you really have to kind of think about folks who are colorblind. They really see the world differently than we do. So just keep that in mind, and you know, think about it when you're designing your particular website. Okay, so it talks about using color wisely. Again, very, very important that we don't have different color schemes going on there. So how do we apply color? Well, we can use the actual color name, you know, red, blue, green, orange. We can use this RGB colors, red, green, blue. We can also use hexadecimal colors with RGB. I'm going to show you a couple extra that aren't in the book as well. So here's an example. So here's a color name. It's aqua, black, blue, fuchsia, whatever. Here's its hexadecimal representation, 00FFFFF. Black is all zeros, blue is that, so on and so forth. Okay, so how do we use those? Well, with red, blue, green, well, let me back up. I can actually say color lime, or I can say color 00FF00. Okay, and that's going to make it lime. Okay, but I can also, what if I need that gradient color? Well, I'd have to go find it in the color scheme of things. I have to go find it here, but I can also use this RGB, and I can use it two different ways. I can use a percentage or an actual integer number. If I use a percentage, this first number says how much red do you want, how much green do you want, how much blue do you want. So in this case we want 0 red, 100% blue, 100% green. So if we take a look at this growing flowers, the text in the box right here, the word box itself, is RGB 0, 100%, 100%. So if we take a look at that, so it's right here. So I've got a div class box. So I got a box up here that draws it. I've got a style color, RGB, parentheses. Whoop, wrong one. Let me change it. Okay, so let me change this to the next RGB. Okay, so, and I save it, and now I refresh it. You notice it just changed a little different color. Why? Well, I changed it to 50% red, 20% green, and 100% blue. What if I made it 50-50-50? Okay, so 50% of each. It looks kind of a gray color. Kind of weird. Okay, what if I made 100% each? I think you might guess the answer to that one. So if I make it 100, 100, and 100, that's white. What if I made it 000? I think you're going to guess that one. You probably already know the answer. black. Okay, so kind of cool, really kind of cool. Now, another thing we can do with RPG, our GP, is we can use integers. We have to go from 0 to 255 because all we have is 256 different color variations of that color. So when we do that, I'm going to choose 0 red. 255 means that's blue, or I'm sorry, green. 255 means that's blue. Okay. As I lower those numbers, it basically will make it a different shading or tint of that color. So if I go back over here, and I'm going to use that first one that I had, again, now we're back to that light blue that we saw earlier. And so that's basically the 0, 255, 255. Okay, so that's blue and green mixed together. We kind of get that light blue, or that kind of a, I think there's a little bit of a green tint to it. So what if I made it less blue? So let me make it, I don't know, let's make it 100. Well, let's make it 125. So that's half of blue. Let's see if it becomes more green. Yep, we can see it's more green now. Okay, so that's basically what that represents. If we use hexadecimal colors, if I use this 00FFFF for Fs, I don't think I have that one, but let me do it real quick. So I will say #00FFFF, and I will then save it and refresh it, and it becomes that blue again. Okay. Now I'm going to show you a nice little shortcut when we're using hexadecimal. Let's say I have a situation of, here's what I want you to think of this. Think of the first 2 digits as being red, the next 2 is blue, green, the next 2 are blue. So let's say I had this. Oh. Okay, I got 00FFDD. And if I save it, and I come back over here and do a refresh, it changed a little bit. But here's the nice thing about that. If you have 3 pairs of numbers or letters, you can do this. They have to be pairs. It can't be 1 2 3 1 2 3. It has to be 1 1 2 2 3 3. If you have 3 pairs together, you can actually get rid of one of those, and that is the nice shorthand. That is shorthand for 00FFDD. If I save it, you'll notice this guy won't change at all. It basically stayed the same. So just remember that. It's kind of a nice little shortcut. So if you need black is 6 zeros, or is it 6 Fs? 6 Fs. You can make it 3 Fs. That'll work just fine. Before we continue on, though, I want to talk about another guy. And this is called HSL. Now, HSL is just like RGB, okay? So I can say HSL, and it's 100, or 0, 100%, 50%. Except what it's doing is HSL is a little different in that the color, the first number is the color, and the next one is the hue of that color, and the third one is the lightness of that color. So let's say, come back over here, I'm going to change this so now I've got a color of 0. Well, let's make it 0FD, like I did up the earlier one, and it's 100% hue. That it's original color, and it's let's make it 100% lightness. Okay, so it's going to be that dark. Okay, so I come back over here to growing wildfires. I do a refresh, and oh, I can't see anything. Is it 256? I think it's 0 for 256. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. So let me change that to oh, 0 is white. Where am I at? Oh, there we are. I was in the wrong one. So let's make it 0FD. Okay. I changed the wrong one. And that looks like black to me. Maybe we have to stick with the 256. So let me change it to, let's say, 125. Okay. Let's see what color that is. Oh, frustration. Yeah, that's okay. So red is 0. I thought red was 0. And then 90 is green, 180 is cyan, and 270 is kind of this. So yeah, so we're doing 380 color. Yeah, it's 379 different colors, 0 through 379. That's right. Yeah. So think of a compass. I thought I was correct there. So so maybe I was correct before. So let's make it red again. So let me make it 0. And 100%. Let's make it 50%. See what happens. Yeah. So there's red. So if I made it 100% lightness, right? 100% lightness means yes. So I'm going just opposite. Let me make it 10. Let me make it 10% and see what happens. That should make it darker because we're talking about lightness, we're not talking about darkness. I'm thinking 100% is dark. No, 100% is light. So yeah, so that red it's kind of hard to see, but that is red. It's a really, really, really dark red. Let me make it 25%. That should make it yeah, so it's a little lighter now. So the higher the number, the lighter it gets. The number in the middle, so let me make it 50% now, so it's easier to see. I want to change this middle one to a different. Now this is the hue. So start thinking of red and start thinking of different hues we can go through to change that. So I'm going to change it to, well, think of the hue spectrum between red, blue, green. Okay, so we're going to change that around there. Or I'm sorry, we're still red because it's 0, but we're going to change the hue of red. So let me make it 50% and 50%. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, so it's kind of an orangish color. So it's still red, but it's a different hue of red, and the lightness is at 50%. Okay, so that's a great thing about HSL. HSL is awesome in the fact that we can pick a color, remember starting at 0 all the way around to 379, think of a compass. sorry, 360, yeah, 359, yeah. So compass goes from 0 to 359. So think of that. And now the middle number is going to tell us the hue. So think of the different shades or different, if we start adding kind of the different colors to the red, what does it do? But its main focus is red. And the last one is the lightness. Okay, how dark do you want that color? So again, we're either adding black to it. So anything below 50 is shading it. Anything above 50 is tinting it. Okay. So the last one I want to talk about is this one called HSLA. And what it does is it's the same exact thing in that the very first number is the color, thinking of a compass, 0 through 359. The next one is the hue, and the next one is the tint, or the lightness. I'll make it 50%. And the last one now is the transparency. Okay? So if I made this just 1.0, that means it's solid, you cannot see through it. Okay? So if I were to refresh this, it basically just went away. Why did it go away? Oh, because I didn't uncomment it. I was testing you folks. Okay, so I save it, refresh it, and there's my red. But, and that's 1.0. If I change that to say 0.25, it looks like it's lighter, but it's not. It's more transparent. So if I had this text sitting on top of a picture, so I'm floating this on top of a picture, that text you could see the picture bleeding through the actual text, which is pretty cool. So HSLA, just like HSL, first number is, or the first number is the color of a color wheel of 0 to 359. The next one is the hue of that color, and the next one is the lighting. Anything above 50% is adding tint, anything below 50% is adding shading to it. Okay, so let's get back to our book. Okay, so now we have to think about, so we've talked about color, we've talked about images, we've talked about all that. Now we need to basically see how we add all of those things to our website at the same time. So we have to think about the background color, the background image, or the content layer. So again, we've got our background, we've got a background image layer, those are kind of interchangeable. And then we've got our content layer, the actual stuff that's basically being displayed on our page. So if we look here we've got a background image of a balloon. Here's our content layer, the actual word balloon, and then our background color is this light blue. So how do we control those things in our cascading style sheet? Well, we have our color property, and we basically know what that is, the color, and then the colon, and we could say the blue RGB, or we can actually put in the hexadecimal number. And so this is kind of what we got. So right now we've got a white background. We've got, that's pretty much it. Okay. So I've set the color of my H1 tag up here to a red. We've got a bottom border of 3 pixels solid. And so we basically draw that border clear across the screen. And we've got a padding of 6 pixels. Okay, so notice that the text is off of that line, off of that border, and not butted up against the border. Okay, we can set a default color. So if I say body and I say color, that number, every text within our page is going to have that color unless we override it and change it with a different cascading style sheet, a different style. Okay. We can also change link colors. Okay, so we have link, the actual link just sitting there. It's unvisited. We can set it to a specific color. Active means that this is the color displayed when the user points to a link and holds it down with the mouse button. We have visited. We actually have a fourth. It's called hover. Okay, so if we look at our page over here, I've actually got an A link. So A is basically saying this is the tag, the anchor tag, which is an href tag, and I'm saying, and the colon means this is a parameter of that. Not all tags have these parameters. Certain ones do, and an anchor tag is one of those. So I said link, I want it to be that color. Active, I want it to be that color. Visited, meaning once I've been there, it's going to look like that. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to say green here. And the last one is hover. It means if I hover over it, I'm going to set it to an RGB color. Okay, so let me save that. Go back to our growing wildflowers, and notice I've got this red link over here. When I hover over it, it turns blue. That's the hover. If I hover over it and click down on it, and the active doesn't work. It depends. That active is more of a browser based item. So I click on it, and it's going to go to that website. Maybe. Let me kill it. Let me do a right click and open a new tag. Okay. Now notice what just happened. It turned gray. So that is the visited color. The hover still works, but it no longer is red because it's already been visited. So now we know we've been to that link before, and now it's basically a different color. Okay, so those are changing the link colors. Now we want to specify a background color for our website. We could do a background color for basically in any item. So here we're going to use an H1. We're going to say any H1 that we use is going to have a background color of whatever color that is, and that's basically what that hot air ballooning is going to do now. And again, since it's an H1 tag, it's going to default to as wide as it goes, which is the page, which could be the body. The body could basically, if we had a wrapper, it's going to go as wide as a wrapper if we're inside of a wrapper. I've got span.bg color, meaning the only thing I can use this is in a span tag, and I have to use it, and it's a dot, so it means I have to use it as a class. So if I come down here, I got span class bg color, and then hot air, or bg color, so it's going to basically grab all of that and apply it to that span, which will, look at this, we're just saying the background color is just going to be for hot air and not ballooning. And notice hot air is the only one that now has a background color. That's kind of neat as well. So we can get very, very specific on our background colors. I could have just made the background color for one letter. Page background color. So if I make my body and I say background color, I believe that's a cyan, that's basically what it's going to do. Now look here, we've taken our navigation, we've made our navigation background color white. Nice contrasting colors, very easy to read. We can also do what's called a text reverse. In this case, for H1 tag, we made the background color this red color, and then we made the color, which is the text, as white. And now we have this red box with white lettering in it. It's a nice contrast there as well. It's called text reversing. Looks very, 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 very professional. So now we want to put an image in our background. Well, if we do that, we have to use this background image, and we're going to use what's called a URL. So if I wanted this, so now if we look at this, this looks like this is a bunch of pictures of a hot air balloon, but it's really not. It's one hot air balloon that we said repeat, and it's going to repeat across the page. And so that's the actual background image. So here's how it works. I say background dash image colon URL, and then I give the path of the actual image itself. So here we have background dash image URL clouds.jpg. So whatever that image is, that's going to appear at the background. Anything we put on that website now will appear on top of that image. So here's the clouds picture. And again, notice we're using a wrapper, and our wrapper has its own background and does not inherit the background of the actual body. Okay, so the wrapper has a white, but the actual background of the page is this cloud, and so it gives it a nice contrast as well. So now, again, we talked about repeating. So this is the actual picture. That's the actual picture of the clouds, but you'll notice that basically we can see it a lot over there, and that's because it's basically been repeated. So how to repeat it? Well, if we just say repeat, it's just going to do that. It's going to repeat it row by row by row by row by row. Okay, or go across, down, across, down, across, down. If I say repeat X, it's only going to go across the X axis. If I do Y, it's only going to do the Y axis. If I say no repeat, it's just going to have it on there one time, and that's it. So I want to create a vertical repeat. So here I've got my wrapper floated all the way up to the right, and I've got this left edge over here. And so what I've got is I've got this image that looks like it's beveled. Okay, so it looks like the light is shining on the left here, and that's beveled, and then it's dark over here like it's beveled and getting some shadow. But I want that to appear all the way down the left-hand side. So to do that, I make that background of my website to be repeat Y. So the background image is that, the background repeat is repeat Y. And so that's exactly what it does. It will put as many of those in as long as that page needs it to be. I want to have a horizontal repeat. So now I've got this picture where it's beveled up and down now. It's kind of lighter up here and then darker down here. Well, I want that to appear at the top. So now I've got my wrapper floated to the bottom. So now I've got my body background. Here's my repeater header image, which is this guy up here. And now I want it to repeat X. So the X basically is going to cross this way. So I'm only going to repeat that and nowhere else. If I want a non-repeating, I can actually just have this picture appear once, and there it is. Again, anything we put on there will appear on top of that. If you're going to have background images, make sure that you, take them into Pixlr and then go into that brightness and contrast and really whiten it up and really wash them out, because if you have too much background, it really takes away from your website and it makes things hard to read and that type of thing. Or use a wrapper. Have it as your background, then have the wrapper on top of it so that the wrapper has a solid background and it's sitting on top of a pictured background. We can tell it where we want our background picture to appear with the background position property. Okay, so we have background image, background repeat. So background dash image, background dash repeat, and now we've got background position. So we can use percentages. So up here in the left-hand corner says I want to go 0 from the left and 0 from the top. This guy says I want to go some 50% from the left and 0 from the top. This is I want you to go 100% from the left all the way to the right and 0 from the top. So you can kind of see how we can get that position specifically where we want it to be. We can use percentages, or we can use actual integers in pixels, or ems. I guess we could use ems as well. Or we can use keywords like left, right, center, top, and bottom. Okay. So here I've got a gradient picture that is the image is on the left, and here I'm saying I want the background image to be this gradient left or right gradient. The repeat Y means up and down, and the position I want to be on the right. Okay. And if it was on the, maybe I had a left gradient, repeat Y, and I said left, it would basically do that. So here's the repeat on the left, repeat right. I can repeat on the x-axis. On the top, I can use the top position, or I could repeat on the x-axis and position it on the bottom. Okay, so it'll appear at the bottom of the screen. So this guy over here, we probably used a top position to make sure that it appeared at the top of the screen. Okay, so that is it for this chapter. Again, experiment using some of the different graphics files like JPEGs and GIFs and PNGs, and play around with the SVG. That's kind of a cool, that's kind of a really neat picture. You have to really kind of search for them, but again, remember they're very two-dimensional. They're not real flashy, but they are very detailed, and you can make them big, you can make them small, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't care. So again, go through this. Is there no hand? Oh, there's the hands-on project. Make sure you go through the hands-on project. It really will strengthen your web page development capabilities, because it really steps you through and tells, and you can kind of see things happen instantaneous. So, any questions? Give me a call.